In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast, powered by the Roll Up Network. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. I really appreciate you guys' support. This has been a great year. It means a lot to us how much you've been supporting us. Before we jump into tonight's film review, I just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgooutthere.com. We've got all of our interviews, our episodes, our blog, our store, our celebrity shout outs, and all of our social media links. We're on all social medias.
Hey, we're about to release some new shirts too, so be on the lookout on our store for sure.
Fire
merch! Woo!
We got all the social media links. We'll probably post all of the new stuff on there, so definitely check us out on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just go follow us, subscribe, keep up with us. We'd love to interact with you. Answer your questions on the show, good stuff like that. And if you ever want to support us, financially, nothing that we require or anything like that, but we have a setup called Blood Donors where you can either make a one-time donation or be a monthly donor. Just go to our website and check that out. All right, let's jump into brother Dustin's film review tonight. He chose 1998's Blade. Dustin, do you want to kick us off and tell the audience why you picked Blade?
Yeah, sure. So Blade came out when I was a 10-year-old boy, and it's just a movie that I remember seeing when I was in middle school. And yeah, it's horror, but honestly, for a long time, I didn't even think of it that way. I don't know why I get it. It's a vampire movie, so yeah, it's horror. But Blade, to me, Wesley Snipes, first of all, is one of my favorite actors.
Yes.
I don't think he gets enough credit from being Sidney Dean in one of my favorite movies, White Men Can't Jump, to being Nino Brown in New Jack City. I love a lot of things that he's done, and this is no exception. This is one of my favorite movies from him. It's just a movie I've always enjoyed, and it's been on my list from the jump. And so once we got through a lot of the blood donor picks and got back to us picking movies, I was like, let's go ahead and knock it out.
Awesome. I'll go next real quick. I think this movie's, I've seen it way back when, surprisingly, I've actually seen this movie. I saw it many moons ago, and I hadn't seen it until this past week because I couldn't remember much about the movie, but I like the movie. I won't say I love it. It's superhero, these type of movies, these action kind of movies just aren't my favorite thing. This doesn't mean this is a bad movie or anything. It's just not my personal favorite. But like Dustin said, Wesley Snipes as Blade is just incredible. My man, Chris Christopherson, he was a sailor, sailed a schooner around the Horn of Mexico. He was a highwayman. Love it.
Attaboy, Nico.
That's right. Old school country music, nothing better. I'll just say that this isn't my personal favorite movie or anything, but it's enjoyable. And Wesley Snipes is incredible, and he liked our post, and we sent you a DM, Wesley. Go ahead and answer that and come on the show for us, brother. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so X-Men, and I love the X-Men movies. I know I'm in one of the few and far between in that, but they always get the credit for starting off this revolution of comic book movies. Well, people forget about the fact that Blade snuck in before X-Men and is really an overlooked 90s fucking staple, in my opinion. It was the first successful R-rated comic book movie long before Deadpool came along. And hell, Blade is what convinced Marvel Studios they could actually make some Nico type bread actually, on movies because it was, and I'll let Mike get into the money later, but it was actually successful. Especially when bullshit like Phantom and Batman and Robin's franchise killing ass was the comic book movies then. Also, and in Black Panther, got all this credit for having a diverse cast and an African-American lead in a comic book movie. But my man Wesley Snipes was doing that shit over 20 years ago. But I have a soft spot for these movies. 3 isn't very good, but Blade 2, and I'm definitely picking that shit later. Blade 2 is my favorite comic book movie of all time. This one's a little bit lower on my tier, but I still like it a lot. Great cast. Yeah, it has some cheesy dialogue. I'll touch on that some. I'm sure everybody else will touch on some of the CG that's pretty spotty and 90s, very obviously 90s in some places. But this was such a groundbreaking movie on so many levels. And like Dustin said, Wesley Snipes, absolutely love him.
And real quick before you go, Mike. So I also love the X-Men movies, but
Nice.
I gotta let the listeners in on a little secret here. I intentionally picked Blade so that Brian can pick Blade too. This was something that we've been talking about for a while because we both love these movies. 3 doesn't exist. Go ahead.
You mean you don't like Triple H being a vampire? All right, here we go. Sit back, everyone. Okay, unlike you, Nico, I don't like superhero movies. There are the exceptions. Again, the first 2 Nolan Batmans are that exception pretty much. That's about it. I also don't like vampire movies. I don't like the concept of vampires. They don't really interest me. I think there's a lot of stupid rules around vampire and vampire movies. But okay. All that being said, I will give this movie a lot of credit for a lot of stuff that Brian touched on, which was having a very diverse cast ahead of its time, as a strong black lead, as a strong female lead, which I think both do a great job. Love Wesley Snipes. I got nothing against Wesley Snipes. White Man Can't Jump's one of my favorite films, so it's great. Chris Christopherson is awesome. My man, Highwayman. Love him to death. There's some good here. Objectively, this is not a bad movie. I could not remove my bias, though, because I just don't. It combines 2 genres that I don't like, and they put it all in one genre. And so, for me, it's just not a very enjoyable viewing experience. There's some good action scenes. I'm not like, the biggest action guy, but there's some good action in this movie. It doesn't just look like quick cuts from a camera. There's some actual choreography going on. I like that about it. It looks more like a realistic fight, even though there's like flippity-doos and stuff. I think it still looks pretty good. To get to some cons for a minute here, the CGI is fucking horrible. It's awful. All of it. And you can disagree with me, that's fine. It's all bad. I know it's 1998. I don't care. It didn't age well. I think the dialogue is pretty bad, honestly, all around. I outside of a couple one-liners from Wesley Snipes himself, I just don't think the dialogue is very good. I'll say this, and this may be a hot take amongst the Blade community. I really don't know. I think Steven Dorff is awful in this movie. His acting is bad. His character is cheesy as hell, over the top, like old school 70s wrestling villain to me. I don't care for it. It doesn't suck me in. It doesn't make me want to watch more of them. I don't know what it is, but this movie's just a little too campy, even for me, someone that enjoys camp. Now, I don't know if this is a movie, and maybe you two can answer it better. Is this movie taking itself seriously, or is it not? Because if it's a movie that takes itself seriously, I really don't like it. If it's a movie that's not taking itself seriously, then I'll give it a little more credit. Also, shout out to the woman that plays Dr. Karen. She's great. I love her in this movie. She can also call me sometime. Also, I can't help but let this go. The man who plays Quinn, whose name is slipping me right now, I know him from the dad on Grounded for Life. That shows my age right there. That's all I really know him as. So every time I watch this movie, I'm like, man, you're out of place here. I'm used to you, like, pouring dog food in a bowl or whatever he does on that show. So anyway, yeah, I'm split because I'll give it credit for kind of being ahead of its time and revolutionary, but it's just not an enjoyable viewing experience for me. And I know that's hypocritical because I let things go like Freddy Krueger jumping out of dreams and, Jason Voorhees somehow catching up with people even though he's 6 miles away. Like, I got it. I know that's hypocritical, but when it works, it works. And when it doesn't, it doesn't. And for me, none of these things work. But there's some positives. I'll try to stick on them as much as I can.
So you and Nico real quick said something that is interesting to me. Outside of this being a Marvel movie in the comic book series, this doesn't feel like a superhero movie to me, really. I mean,
that's fair. That's fair. And one thing I do want to touch on that, Dustin, is there are some spots to me personally where it does, where some of the fighting is very over the top superhero fighting to me, where the guy's just invincible. And I know they do a better job of explaining why, so I'll give them credit for it. I just, again, some of the stuff, I guess maybe knowing that it's a superhero makes me kind of view it through that lens, if that makes sense. Like,
Well, okay, all right. Do you guys like the Underworld movies? Because I mean, that's not a superhero movie,
Right.
and that's just strictly a
Okay.
vampire movie. That's martial arts,
Yeah.
basically throwback to martial arts stuff, vampire lore. Like, do you guys like that?
It's
Rise of the
not,
Lycans. I like that movie.
it's not
I like
my
that
cup of tea. Like, the Underworld movie is not my cup of tea.
Is that the only one you've seen, Nico?
I believe so, but I like it.
But Dustin's not wrong. This is not a traditional superhero movie because honestly, the character Blade saving people is like third on the list of stuff he cares about doing. So like, I will give them credit for like him kind of being a go fuck yourself superhero.
Fair enough. Any more opening thoughts before we jump into scene by scene? All right, let's do it. The film starts in 1967 in a hospital. We see a woman being rushed to the ER. She's giving birth and has a terrible neck wound. The baby is delivered and the mother reaches out as, the doctors carry the baby away. We get opening credits now and a title card. And now the screen says now. A woman and man are speeding and we see them in like a meatpacking plant now. We hear techno music and the guard lets them into the rave. Guy walks through the crowd and notices blood drops fall on his hand. He looks up and blood rains down from the sprinklers. His date asks what's wrong and she shows her fangs. The crowd circles him and they're all vampires. They kick him as he crawls into Blade. The crowd realizes it's him, the Daywalker. Blade pulls out a shotgun and begins to shoot them and fight them. A big fight scene out in the club. He even kills the DJ. He pulls out his sword now and kills off bodyguard zombies. He throws his vampire ninja star and kills several. Blade tells Quinn he's tired of chopping him up, so he's going to try a fire this time and ignites him. The cops and firefighters enter and find the man covered in blood as Blade escapes. Back in the morgue now, we have a charred cadaver. It was stapled to the wall. Karen and Curtis look at the blood samples under the microscope, and the blood measurements are off the chart and blood cells aren't right. Curtis takes her down to the body. She looks in his mouth as Curtis cuts his chest open. He asks if she has second thoughts about them. The vampire springs up and bites Curtis' neck, killing him. It chases after Karen, now biting her neck as Blade marches towards them. Blade cuts its arm off as the cops show up and shoot at Blade. The vampire jumps through the window and lands in an ambulance, terrifying the poor lady. Back to Blade, he stands over Karen and he carries her away now as the cops shoot at him again. Blade throws her out the window onto another building, on a tarp, I guess, and he jumps across to her now, hiding them both. He pops her shoulder back in place as they escape. Blade makes it through this junkyard and into this lab. He calls for Whistler and carries Karen to him. He tells Blade he should have killed her and to watch her close in case she turns. Whistler says she's close, and 1 more hour she'd be changed. He tells her he's going to inject like this garlic substance into her and only gives her a 50-50 chance to make it. All right, Brian, go ahead and kick us off for those two opening scenes.
Yeah, right off the bat, I think this movie has one of the stronger openings. We get Tracy Lords here, who doesn't even make it barely past the opening credits, but as a big name of the 80s and 90s, as she really was, it was kind of marketed that way too. I mean, she gets like top billing in the credits only to make, just a little quick cameo, basically kind of Drew Barrymore Scream style here. But I liked this. Also, all right, let me rant for a second. I haven't had one of these in a while. So this is early David S. Goyer. And I've actually used this as an example, in one of my earlier episodes we did. I can't remember which one, but I used him as an example as a decent storyteller, but an absolutely horrible director. And a reason why you shouldn't write and direct something. Goyer obviously is a huge in the comic book movie genre. He did Nolan's Batman trilogy, Man of Steel, tons and tons of others that I really love. I think he's really good, but I also think he's and stick with me here, like George Lucas, only as good as the director of his movie, because he's even admitted to saying like on this movie's commentary, even that he's like, number one, very bad at dialogue, like Mike said, and specific scene writing. He's really good at like structure and the quote unquote like high points of the movie, and like let's directors and actors kind of like fill in that dialogue, which apparently Snipes did a ton on this movie. I think this is very noticeable in this trilogy because like we have Stephen Norrington on this one who didn't do bad. And this movie is pretty good. And then we have Guillermo del Toro for Blade 2, and I think that's amazing. And then they let Goyer direct 3. and it was full of that cheesy dialogue because there was nobody really check him on it. Does that make sense? But shit, I mean, this movie started that whole slowing down, like Matrix style of the bullets, you know, and this came out a year before the Matrix, so that kind of started that whole little section of which I really am not a huge fan of that whole slow bullet track. But hey, you know, give it some credit here, and I love the world building he does, the hieroglyphics. The hierarchy of the vampires, like we talked about. I think Underworld does that better, but I think this does this pretty good here. Goyer has some really good stuff written in here. Love Chris Christopherson as Whistler. You know, I'm a big fan of the '01 Planet of the Apes, as me and Mike talked about, and Payback. I think he's a great actor and very well written in this. He's kind of a great, like for lack of better words, like he's a great like yin to Snipes' yang, like kind of character wise. But yeah, great opening, badass introduction to Blade as you kind of get Snipes with that little smirk as he approaches the vampires, which I'm always glad to see. Like, we don't get an origin story. We kind of get this established character, and we get this kind of backstory of him, like through flashbacks and things later. But it's not in that whole normal superhero formulaic like type of script. If I had to nitpick anything, I'd say him cheesing before he threw that whole batarang ninja star thing and the whole Kevin McAllister, yes, as he like pins Quinn to the wall. I thought that was super cheesy. And Blade saying, "Motherfucker, are you out of your damn mind?" when he gets shot by the police. Definitely kind of breaking character there to me, but it makes me laugh every time, so I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Oh, that's
Mike.
one of my favorite lines.
Oh, I actually like that line. I mean, yeah, it's out of the realm of the character, but it kind of makes me like that character a little more that he's willing to do that. Yeah, okay. So I don't hate the opening. What I will say is this first scene at this club is very late 90s, early 2000s with the music. Cracked me up. This recent rewatch, I was like, man, I felt like I've heard this song a million times. That's because there's a million songs that sound like this.
Yeah. And I may or may not work out as a soundtrack sometimes. Just
well, there you go. Okay.
I think Fast and Furious has a lot of this in it too.
I could see a good pump to so yeah, totally get it. So I like the action in this club scene. I think the fighting is good. I will say, how many like portal underworld, like how many like different cave things do these vampires have, man? They have like 6 different headquarters throughout this movie. They all get fucked up by Blade. But yeah, I love the fighting. Like, I do think most of it is really good, especially the beginning scene and the last scene. Then we get to the doctor, and I don't care about this mini side plot that they have with the 2 doctors used to be dating each other. It seems very out of place, and it's not very realistic, honestly. Just, I mean, no offense, looking to each their own, but I'm not buying it. So I don't think that really adds anything, even though he kind of comes back later. Zombie thing that doesn't do anything for me. I do like this movie for one thing. They don't ever get Blade and Karen romantically involved. I love that about this movie. These two could just coexist as strong characters without having to be kissing each other. Like, I think that's great. That's a plus in this movie's direction. I love Chris Christopherson and most of the stuff he's in. Me and Brian disagree about that '01 Planet of the Apes, but we agree on Planet of the Apes as a franchise. Like, we like a lot. We definitely like this most recent trilogy, which I know we share that. '01, I understand why he likes it. That's all I'll say. I'm not going to go on that rant today, but I like Chris Christopherson, kind of like Nico, some of that country music. He was probably the least important member of the Highwaymen, but he did matter. So, anyway, fun opening, definitely. And you do get some really bad cheese as he's kind of killing these, or trying to kill these vampires at the club. And you get Brian already touched on it, the Ninja Death Star, that every time I see it, I just think of South Park. He gets you get the like, yeah, all right. Like, that really takes me down a little bit. But to Dustin's point, I love you must be out your fucking mind, whatever he said. Like, I love that. It adds a little bit of levity to a superhero character. So I'm in on that. Fun opening. Definitely not my least favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, I like the opening as well. It's very late '90s. You can it definitely is dated when you watch it back. And honestly, the first time you see like the vampires, and even all the way throughout, it really made me think of like Gangrel and the Brood from late '90s WWF, Attitude Era WWF. Like I really think they were the basis for how they designed these vampires.
I used to love Gangrel. I feel like that was the only one, but I used to love it.
Hell yeah, brother. No. Hell yeah, that's the only vampire I ever liked.
And he had a great entrance where he came up through the ring of fire on the stage. And fun fact, he really had those teeth. Like he really filed his teeth. The vampire movement was very real back in the late '90s. But
they should have used the Brood's music instead of this club music. That was a banger.
Oh, that'd
anyway,
been fire. That'd been fire. One of the few things Jim Johnston got right. Anyway, enough about wrestling.
One of the few. Fuck you. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, come on, dude. Most of his music sucked. We get some badass fight scenes here. I think the action and the fight scenes are fantastic, at least in this part of the movie. There's some other fight scenes that are questionable, but right here they're great. It irritates me every time I watch this movie. It irritates me that he gives the whole spiel about I'm going to burn you this time. Like I would have been more okay with it, I guess, if he just burned him. You don't have to tell me what's going on. Just say that you're going to burn him. And then, like the fact that he didn't just kill him, and then you hear the cops coming in or whatever, and he's on fire. Just stab him in the heart with whatever. It happens. But, for all the visual effects and CG that this movie gets wrong, the burn effects on Quinn are phenomenal. Like when he's a cadaver and he's smoking and he comes back alive, reanimated. That looked great. And also shout out to Donald Logue. I forgot, it had been a while since I watched this movie. And since the last time I watched it, I watched the entire series of Gotham. And so when I popped this in, I was like, holy shit, I forgot. Bullets is in this. But, he's a great actor himself. That's what I think of him as. Mike, I know you said another show. But another thing about this intro to the movie is, we really don't know for sure that Blade is a protagonist. And what I mean by that is, like, he comes in, he's dressed in all black. He's coming into their club. This is their party that he was not invited to, and just start wrecking shit. Like, it's kind of rude. And then he, motherfucker, have you lost your mind? Like, is this a good guy? He's kind of like the anti-hero, which really fucking works for me. I love that type of character. And then you mentioned the doctor that played, or the lady that played Karen, and Boucher Wright is her name. She is great in this movie as well. I also had, to your point, I love that they don't get them romantically involved. Just keep them strong characters. You don't always have to have a love interest. I think Hollywood gets that wrong so many times. They think that we'll leave interest. But they kind of fucked it up because she does have a love interest. At first, with, like you said, who gives a shit? We didn't have to have a reason why she was reluctant in the morgue or, to go with this doctor. Like, that can just be natural. We don't have to have a love interest there. Thank God they abandoned that. But last thing on this set of scenes, because you guys pretty much touched on everything else, you reminded me of something, Brian. For at least the first half of high school, probably all 4 years, I really wanted, and I don't know how they would have made it work. It probably wouldn't have worked. It probably would have sucked. But I really wanted a Blade Matrix crossover. Like, it just, they were so similar, in style and just how the feel of the movies, they were so similar there. I really think that Blade could have helped Neo or vice versa, and it would have been fucking awesome. But anyway, great opening. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think that it aged well as far as the music and the setting goes, but there's still just so much happening in that first set of scenes. We have, none of us even touched on the backstory really that they show you there and then immediately go away from with his mom. There's enough happening that you're just glued to the TV, in my opinion.
I also like that they don't give me this convoluted long origin backstory thing. They just give me the thing with the mom. They explain why he's half and half. Like, I'd like that they kind of keep that contained because again, the rule of thumb, I don't normally like prequels because they answer questions I'm not asking. I kind of feel that way about origin stories where, like, I don't really need to know this character's origin story that much. Like,
Right.
just give me a simple, bare bones little thing that I can grasp of why he is the way he is, and that's all I need. Now give me an original story. And so I like that this movie doesn't dive too much into why he is Blade.
Our Dragon Eddie is at a table meeting with a lot of people looking through photos of Blade. He asks for Frost to be sent in. A man tells Frost he is a disgrace. They tell him his nightclubs are dangerous. Frost says we should be ruling these humans. They're our food, not allies. Dragon Eddie calls him out for not being a pure blood vampire, just merely turned. Frost tells him one day you may wake up and find yourself extinct. Blade goes into a shop and he tells Cam he's building a resistance to the serum. He leaves after a cool handshake and giving him money. We see Karen waking up now and she wanders around the place. She finds a wall of guns and she touches a sword. When she does, it makes a noise and spikes spring out by the handle, scaring her. Whistler tells Blade she's a hematologist and she might be useful to us. He tells Blade he upped the dosage to a dangerous level. Blade begins to twitch as his body absorbs the serum. They see Karen hiding and they chase her down and introduce themselves. She asks if she's a prisoner. They say no, just had to take precautions. The town's full of vampires. Whistler tells her silver, garlic, sunlight, and UV rays are good against them. Blade tells her if she wants to live, she needs to leave town tonight. Whistler says he and Blade try to contain them, and the vampires own the police. She's confused, I wrote. Whistler gives her vampire mace and to be careful. He tells her to get a gun and use it on yourself if you become weak to sunlight or become thirsty. Blade drives her out the junkyard. Back to Dragon Eddie, and he sees Frost trying to translate ancient languages in the library, but Frost isn't listening to him. He smacks Frost and asks what he's up to. Frost asks what's he going to do. Dragon Eddie says he bores him and walks out. Blade drops Karen off and tells her to keep her eyes open. They're everywhere. Karen boards an elevator with some people, and they ask her how she's doing. They follow her out the elevator, and she pulls out the mace, but when she turns around, they aren't following her anymore. She makes it inside her apartment, and she's caught off guard. Officer Krieger scares her on a checkup. She asks about Curtis, and he goes to kill her. She sprays him with the vampire mace to no effect. Blade grabs him from behind and kicks his ass, calls him an imposter. She's mad Blade used her as bait. Blade shows her the glyph on the back of his neck. He's owned by Frost, and Blade asks how his boss has been. They check Krieger's trunk and find blood he was delivering. He won't tell them where he's taking it, and he manages to escape and runs away. Blade tells Karen she needs to wake up if she wants to survive the real world. She tells him she's coming with him. She says she has to stay with him so she can find a cure for herself. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so Mike gave his. So here's my thoughts on Stephen Dorff. I think he's pretty blah, but I think he's fine enough here as Deacon Frost. I've never been a big Stephen Dorff fan, to be honest. I liked him in Immortals, but other than that, I've always just kind of seen him as like a discount Chris Pine, or even like a, for my '90s guys, Christian Slater. On cable, not DirecTV, but and actually Jet Li was offered the role and turned it down to do Lethal Weapon 4, which is an elite movie, by the way. And Skeet Ulrich was fresh off of Scream, was pining for the role, but kind of lost out to Dwarf, and he would have been good, but like I said, Dwarf does.
Oh man, I would take Skeet Ulrich over Stephen Dorff.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think he does a fine enough job in it. I think he's more along the like Kiefer Sutherland vibe from in the whole like Lost Boys thing. I think they were kind of going for here anyway, to be honest. By the way, I find it hard to believe nobody has brought up Frost's like point about the humans to the whole council in the thousands of years. They act like it's the first time they've ever heard it, but okay. I think the scene kind of only exists here as kind of a way to show the tension between Frost and the council, as well as kind of establish like this, that he's not a pure blood and kind of his resentment. But hell, he gets bullied more than Nico does for not ever having seen any movies, which honestly is an interesting side of the character. I wish they would have fleshed out a little bit more, but I think it would have made more sense if you make Frost Dragon Eddie's son, because, like problematic vampire like that, they would have just killed him, right? I mean, it's just, that doesn't make any sense that they just kind of let him do whatever the fuck he wants to do. I think that would have been a better explanation of why they didn't do anything to him if he would have just been Dragon Eddie's son. They knew they couldn't touch him. Anyway, that would have just been a little thing. Also, a little fun fact. Udo Kier, who plays Dragonetti, and I feel like he's a bad guy in everything I've ever seen him in. This is actually the third time he's played a vampire, and truthfully, I thought he was in an Indiana Jones movie. Obviously, I was wrong about that one. The point of that was nothing. But anyway, another super cheesy part here, I think, was my name's Abraham Whistler. You've met Blade. And then Blade pops up and has a ninja star batarang and like this pose. He's just like, what? Just have the man still sitting in the damn chair and have him look over to him whenever he says, hey, you've met Blade. I mean, come on, man. It wasn't that hard. Big mess up here. I think they should have caught with editing. But Dragonetti slapping Frost, but blankly missing him is really, really bad here. And Blade standing like out in the open with a gigantic sword on his back, slamming Officer Krieger into the hood of the middle of broad daylight with tons of people walking by in the background. Like, why not just have this like in an alley or something? I mean, it's kind of to me, I notice that every time I watch it. It's kind of laughable, to be honest. Lastly, I do want to point out the cinematography in this set. Like, there's a shot where Blade and Karen is driving over the bridge, and that sun kind of starts peeking through the buildings. The way that shot, I really loved it. And the story that was kind of told, like, there was no dialogue between Blade and her, but the way that he looked at her, you know what he was looking at, you know what he's looking for. It got a lot across without any dialogue whatsoever, and I really liked that. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so this set of scenes is kind of hit and miss to me. You know, you kind of get this meeting of the vampires or whatever, and a lot of the dialogue is just really, really cheesy to me. Some of the villainry, for lack of a better word, is kind of mustache twirler like to me. That's the vibe I get from it anyway, and so I'm kind of tuned out on that. Like, I just, you kind of mentioned it. I just don't buy Deacon Frost, which is sounds like the name of one of those stop animation Christmas movie things. I'm just not a fan of him as a villain. I don't think he's a very strong villain. I need a strong villain to go against a strong, anti-hero at this point, like Dustin pointed out. And so I just, all this dialogue at the, the different hierarchies of vampires and everything else is just, it kind of has me tuned out a little bit. It's not that it's convoluted. It's just not something I'm super interested in, honestly. So you get back to, Karen kind of realizing what's going on, where she is. And, the Whistler's great here. The shot of Blade that Brian mentioned, I also have it, that it's just a little too on the nose, a little too, look at me. Like, I don't know, those are the kind of things that, because I have it in my head, and this is, Dustin brought up a fair point at the top of the show. In my head, I have it that this is a superhero movie, and those are some of the little things that, like, that's very, I don't know. It's just very modern superhero movie to me, for lack of a better wording. So this stuff at, Karen's apartment is, I could take it or leave it. Like, I do think it's kind of a good suspenseful scene when she's in that elevator and the two people are behind her. Like, I like the way that's shot. I like you kind of put yourself in her shoes, and there's some good suspense work there. The elevator, the sounds, everything else. The fact that Blade kind of comes out of nowhere to me, and I know he used her as bait, that's fine. But, like, then you get to the streets, and it's just this guy with a giant sword on his back banging this cop's head against a car. Nobody's saying fucking anything. Like, I don't know, a little too, I can't suspend my disbelief enough that much. But I want to point out, they could have easily gone the romantic route with these two after, he saved her from this cop easily. Could have easily gone that route, been very tropey. I'm so glad they didn't. He just kind of, one thing I like about the Blade character is that he really doesn't, saving people is not his priority. I said it at the top. Saving human beings, really, he could kind of take it or leave it. He's just trying to kill vampires and kill all the people surrounded by the vampires. And so, this scene, or this set of scenes, is just kind of hit and miss for me. It's some of the stuff I wish they had put on the cutting room floor.
So I like this set of scenes for a couple reasons. First of all, Dragonetti, as you mentioned, Brian, Dragonetti is always a bad guy, but there's one movie I can think of where he was thought to be a bad guy. It turned out just to be eccentric billionaire Robert Camp, and that's Ace Ventura, of course. And so anytime I see him, I think
Yes! Oh my God, yes! Dude, I did not remember where I saw that guy from. I thought it was Indiana. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So that was the first thing, it's the first thing I always think of when I watch this movie. But second of all, I kind of like the meeting of the vampires because I think it does a good job of setting the tone for what's going on. You've got the old heads, the pure bloods that are wanting to keep a tradition, and things are working for us, so don't mix it up. You got this young punk Deacon Frost who wants to change things up, and you know what? I'm not a pure blood. I don't have to play by your rules necessarily. And I actually, I thought Stephen Dorff did a fine job. I don't have any issues with how he played the role. I do think he drew a lot of inspiration from Kiefer Sutherland's Lost Boys character, and because I can definitely see that. And I just think that he was very time appropriate. He's that young punk in the late '90s that wanted to challenge the norms, and I thought he nailed the role. Personally, I can see all of your criticisms as well. I love the dynamic we get here from Whistler and Blade, like when we're introduced to what they've got going, and you see that Whistler's, he's just a good dude that wants to keep the world safe and do all this, and he's helping Blade. I do agree with what you said, Brian. Like, I hated the cheesiness of how, and you've met Blade, and then he, that I could have done without, but at the same time, man, I gotta say it. Blade's the coolest damn character I think we've ever reviewed. Like, he's just so damn cool, and he's got the coolest damn car of any movie that we've reviewed. Like, I challenge any of you to think of a movie that we reviewed on this show and tell me a cooler car than his Charger. That's pretty badass.
I agree.
And then I did like him using Karen as bait there. I thought that was hilarious, and how upset she got, and he's like, deal with it, or whatever it was he said. I was like, it shows that he is really an anti-hero. He's not even letting her in on the plan. Which she probably would have foiled if she'd known that she was bait. She wouldn't have been as natural reacting. But no, overall, I think that this set of scenes was just a lot of necessary storytelling so we could see what the final conflict is going to be. That, we were introduced to Quinn. He's a major player, but he's not the player. Dragonetti and the other purebreds, the tribal council, if you will, like, they're the ones that are in charge, but their reign is about to be challenged by a newcomer. And so it really does a good job of, I think, making Frost look like he's going to be this final boss in this level. So I enjoyed him.
All right, it's nighttime now, and we see Blade and Karen staking a place out. We see the cop car take off as Blade chases after them. They say they have to go clear out the clinic on Hillhurst now. Blade shows Karen the safe mark, so there's a safe house nearby. He explains their process. He tells her to use a stake, silver, or sunlight. He gives her a gun and only aim for the head or the heart. The guard asks Blade if he has an invitation, and then we see, the guy thrown into the wall. Inside we hear terrible karaoke as Blade and Karen enter. Blade begins to attack the people as he finds Krieger again. He tells Blade it's in the freezer. He opens the freezer up and we find like this hallway. They take the elevator down and find the archive room. Blade says they have their claws in everything, in politics, the law, everything. Frost is still in the archive room and completes the translations. He gets a message that someone is here to see him. Frost makes an appearance at the party now, and Krieger tries to tell him about Blade. Frost bites Krieger in the neck now, and he kisses a girl. He pushes his body into the pool. Frost tells Quinn he wants Blade alive. You will need 12 purebloods to complete the ritual, Pearl tells Frost. Blade finds Pearl and chats with Blade. Blade tells Pearl we're playing 20 questions, and if he passes, he may live. Pearl lies and they shine the light on him. It's a part of the prophecy. Blade takes a disc and goes into this room with Karen. He tells her these are pages from the Vampire Bible. It contains their entire history. Karen asks why he's so interested in La Magra. He shushes Karen when he hears a noise as we see someone running. Blade finds the girl, but she was just bait and attacks him. An entire squad of vampires attack Blade now. They hold him against his beam, and Quinn jokes about them taking his arm. Quinn gives him some punches and finds his silver. He stabs Blade right in the shoulder with the silver spikes. Blade laughs and says he's expecting company. The wall crashes down and Whistler shows up, shooting the squad. Blade gets away with Karen. Quinn says Frost wants Blade alive and to chase after him. A bomb blows up and Blade and Karen jump across the subway tracks. Quinn chases after and fights Blade. Karen stabs Quinn with the sword but manages to get away from Blade. He grabs a hold of the subway and gets him and Karen away. On the subway now, Karen pops his shoulder back into place now. He doesn't want her help as he injects himself in the neck. He tells her he's not one of them. All right, go ahead, Brian.
I bet you Mike is so bored right now in this part of the movie, learning about the vampire history and hierarchy.
Yes, I am very much so. I have that in my notes. I'll save it. You go
sorry.
first.
Sorry. Anyway, I like the way the police chase scene is shot. I like how the whole sped up time jumps, but yet like the dialogue isn't sped up and it's, mixed in with normal shots. I like that. I think it's unique to me. It fits here. I thought it was a good choice. There's worse things out tonight than vampires. Me. Look, for all the shit I give Goyer for dialogue, and maybe this is Snipes, whoever fucking wrote it. Line of the movie to me, though. Great line. I think that this is actually my favorite group of scenes in the whole movie here. The dance club, the Asian soundtrack with the whole techno there, Mike kind of brought up. I kind of wanted a John Wick type nightclub scene there, but those action scenes do come a little bit later, which, all right, so the action scenes. I hadn't brought up, and I need to. Props to director Stephen Norrington. I think you guys brought this up earlier, but, as much shit as I think that Norrington got wrong in this, the way he shoots the fight scenes isn't. I mean, it's like Mike said, it's not your usual quick cut, close up, choppy. I think you used the word, can hardly tell what's going on, basically fight scene. Like it really shows off that choreography, and that's some badass choreography. And actually, in fact, shout out to Theo Van de Sand, who's actually credited with most of that
absolutely.
choreography. By the way, Pearl, I just want everybody to know out there that this is the people that you're arguing with on Twitter. Like, this is what they look like right here. They're the trolls who leave 1-star comments without listening to your podcast. But come on, like the fart part in here, I thought was too much. Like I do want to say like the practical effects though with him, I think were tremendous. However, I think they did a good job with the way he looked anyway. In question, I don't really understand why the vampires kind of just take the shots and get up when Whistler comes in and go, catch you fuckers at a bad time. Look, great line. But I don't understand why. Is it because they weren't hit in the head or the heart with that fucking like cascade of bullets here? That's my headcanon anyway. I don't know. It would have been nice to kind of see some of them disintegrate. It kind of would have made more sense anyway, unless they're supposed to all be human familiars. I don't know. That's not really, really told right there. Last thing I have is that it was a nice little callback to the opener with Karen setting his shoulder back. And I also like the fact that he keeps letting Quinn go. Look, I think that I would have liked to have seen Quinn finally get caught back up with in that very last scene, not to spoil anything, but that very last scene in Russia, where Blade goes to it. It's like, I don't think it's the finale, but I think that would have been cool to like kind of see him catch up with Quinn there and finally kill him. I don't know. I feel like that happens in some other movie. I don't know if I want to point that out. Like, I think it would have been better for this movie if Quinn would have died that way or another way. I think I'll talk about a little bit later, but that's all I had on this set of scenes.
Yeah, I don't mind the police chase. It's shot really well, or like it's cool, like the way it looks. It's the way it comes off, and I have a soft spot for that nostalgia, thump music that I talked about, the techno in the beginning. Got a little nostalgia for that. Look, man, all this stuff with Pearl is bad to me. I don't think the fart adds any comedic relief. I think it's really, really bad. I don't know how that made it in this film, to be honest. Okay. The character of Pearl kind of looks like the mom from What's Eating Gilbert Grape. So that's what I go to when I see this, and that makes me sad because that's a sad film. Great film, but a sad film. And then, you kind of get that she's a vampire, and the way that they kind of, her skin kind of burns. Look, I'm sure that's CG or whatever, but it looks better than the rest of the CG does. Like, it actually kind of looks realistic or more realistic to me than anything else that we get to see. Sorry, go ahead, bro. Oh, I thought you had something. No, man. So I could take this Pearl stuff completely out and be fine. Brian makes a good point. don't really care about this stuff with the vampire history. Doesn't do anything for me. I know there's quote unquote levels to this shit. I just don't care about the levels, man. Like I really don't. But again, that's a preference. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just not something that I'm interested in. I do like this subway scene though. I think it's intense. The action is good. I buy a lot of it. It's you kind of think, is this the point? Because I know this movie's another 45 minutes or so, but you kind of think, is this the point where they catch Blade here now? Because there's so many close calls, and do they kidnap Karen? Whatever. Like, I like the way this scene plays out. Brian mentioned it. Love the callback to her putting his shoulder back, or kind of helping him, because he did that to her when she dislocated her shoulder in the opening set of scenes. So I actually really like the subway scenes. I disagree on one thing though, Brian. I don't like that he keeps letting Quinn live. Story-wise, it's fine because, of course, this second villain is going to make it to the end. But logically, if I'm this badass vampire hunter, I'm taking this motherfucker out when I have the chance. And so I don't really know why he just keeps letting him go away. But whatever. That's a nitpick. I understand it as a plot device, though. So hit and miss again. But I do really enjoy the subway scenes.
So on this set of scenes, number one, I hate that when they're doing the stakeout, I hate that Kieran says he's not going to come back. You have to be an idiot to do that. And then he immediately came back. Like, that was a little bit hokey to me. I wish that they would have shown that some time had passed, that they did an actual stakeout. Maybe it's the next morning. I don't know. But that kind of irritated me, that it was just so convenient that right after she said that, he came back. But, man, Blade whooped that cop's ass all the way through that restaurant. And that's hilarious to me too, because like it was pointed out earlier, I think someone said that he's doing this in broad daylight, all these people around. He whooped his ass all the way through this club or restaurant, whatever the hell it was, which I thought was funny. Then we get to the party at Frost House, and I think that's a very typical, like, Hollywood style or millionaire style party. Especially of the 90s. But one thing that I just can't get out of my head is, what the hell's up with the rubber duckies in the pool? That was so damn random to me. And I don't know why it sticks out every time I watch it, but it's like,
and the fact that it squeaked whenever he fell into the pool. I was like, that wouldn't do that. I don't know why that would squeak.
Yeah. It's like, I thought that, when you watch it, you think, okay, rubber duckies, that's going to play a part. No, they don't. They never come back. Pearl, disgusting. Could have done without seeing it. Could have done without the character. Like, just holy shit. But I did laugh my ass off though when Karen, fried him, and then Blade looks at her and she goes, "He moved." Like, that was funny to me. Because he's like, if he moves, fry his ass, and then fried him anyway. So I thought that was disgusting, but funny enough to forgive the disgustingness. They absolutely destroyed the fucking archives too. Like, they've got these very nice glass display for these very important and old documents that you could tell they care a lot about. They're just throwing people through them left and right like they don't give a shit. And every time this glass shatters and one of the archives falls to the ground, nobody makes a fuss about it. They never once say, "Oh no, the archives." I thought that was weird. I did laugh though. I think it's funny every time he's like, "I got his pig sticker." And then I hate that line. It just bothers the shit out of me. So it's that instant gratification of his hand getting spiked. I did like the subway chase scene. I thought that it was very, very well done. The fun fact, the way that was shot was those were actually cardboard cutouts in the subway, and the camera was being moved to create that effect. So I thought that was cool effects that they used there. What is with this movie and dislocated shoulders? Like, we're 45 minutes in, we've got 2 dislocated shoulders already. One
Tough
on each
out here, man.
blade. Like, what? I was waiting for it to be revealed that maybe I'm reading in the fun facts or the trivia about the movie that was done as a rib at someone who suffered dislocated shoulders, but I couldn't find it. Like, why? Why? It's just so random to me that they each dislocated a shoulder and they had to help.
Physical therapy soon come, brother.
Yeah, I guess. But geez Louise. But overall, I thought that there were some parts that I didn't necessarily care for. Looking at you, Pearl. But overall, it's another enjoyable set of scenes.
Hey, and also I wanted to point out just another little fun fact about this group of scenes. The movie that they're watching at Frost's house, 1995's Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. I have that. That's the only fun fact I have.
Oh,
You stole
sorry.
it. I hate you.
Our Whistler is telling Karen about how he found him as a kid. His mom was killed by a vampire. Blade can survive all of vampire weaknesses, but still has their powers. He ages like a human, but still has their thirst. He tells her he can't find a cure. Whistler tells her why he kills vampires and how they killed his family. Karen finds Blade and talks to him about what she and Whistler talked about. Blade has spent his whole life looking for whoever killed his mother. Quinn is snapping on some chicks for whatever happened. Frost enters and says he wants Blade alive. Quinn thinks he's crazy. We see Frost and his crew have Dragonetti on some rocks by the beach. He asks when's the last time he soaked in a sunrise. Frost pulls his shirt off and now begins to yank his fangs out. They watch him die in the sunlight. Frost is back at the meeting table and tosses Dragonetti's fangs and says he needs 12 volunteers. Blade gives Whistler a page from the book of Erebus. He gives him some liquor to help him figure out what the page says. Karen went to the hospital last night and shows Blade something under the microscope. It explodes as he looks at it. Karen takes a sample of his blood, and Blade tells her Whistler has cancer. Whistler tells Karen she doesn't look so good, and she has 1, maybe 2 days at the most before she turns. Blade is walking to get more serum, but hears his name called. We see Frost now. He's got a little girl hostage and says it's nice to meet him finally. He says he wants to be a daywalker. Frost offers Blade a truce. He now speaks in another language about the blood god. You're nothing to me but another dead vampire, he tells Frost. Frost dodges Blade's bullets and tosses the little girl into traffic. Blade saves the little girl just in time. Karen tries a new cure on herself but isn't sure she can treat Blade. They hear people and pull out their guns and shoot. Frost shoots Whistler in the leg and kicks and stomps him. Frost leaves and lets Quinn do his thing. Blade shows up and calls for Whistler. Blade sees the dead vampire and sees all the destruction. Blade removes a bloody sheet and we see Whistler's body. He tells him Frost took her. He tells Blade he decoded the disc and is trying to bring on a vampire apocalypse. He needs Blade's blood. He's the chosen one. It's all over. Frost gets his hand on him. Blade gives him his gun and Whisperer shoots himself, ending his life. Blade watches the tape Frost left about where to find him. Blade is rigging weapons and breaking out his motorcycle. And then he cuts the roots to the red flowers. And the next two scenes are ending. Go ahead, Brian.
So right off the bat, a little fun fact here. There's actually a deleted conversation from the script that explained how Blade's sword originally belonged to Whistler, who himself was a part of a long line of vampire hunters. Man, I feel like I would have loved to have seen that left in this movie. And I think it would have instantly given you like even more depth to Whistler. And hey, opens up for you to do a little Whistler spinoff prequel. Just saying. But this convo Whistler has with Karen, I think about Blade's backstory would have been a perfect place to put that in there. And I really missed that once I learned about it. Speaking of Karen Nebuchadnezzar Wright, first off, credit is due to Snipes for her being African American, as he pushed for that from the studio, who actually wanted her to be cast as a white actress. But Mike brought this up earlier, but I have it here. I really agree. I really love how she's not just some stereotypical female character, some love interest. Like you said, she's given stuff to do. The only thing that bothers me is some of the stuff that she was given to do, like discovering the cure. All that shit was like off screen, and I just really didn't like the way. I didn't like the way that it was done. Like I would have liked to have seen a little more there from like her character arc. Maybe made her like a badass vampire, like Batgirl type character that we could have like seen turn up like maybe in sequels and whatnot. I think that would have given more weight to some characters because we like would have seen them here and seen how they originated, and like we could maybe see her die instead of, just spoiler alert, being Whistler like more than once, by the way, or have her like replace Whistler, as much as I love him, like in the second or third one or whatever, as because it makes his death carry even more weight, which I think they do a good job in this, and I know we'll get to it later, but I think it does carry some weight in this one, but it's kind of
Well,
it's taken
ruined.
away.
It's kind of it's kind of ruined by the sequel because Whistler comes back.
Yeah,
Spoiler.
that exactly. It is. It's more than kind of. It is ruined by the sequel, and I think that I love Chris Christopherson, but I think he should have died here and left that weight for that character, and that death made it mean something. But also the scene where Dragonetti's burned to death. I think it would have weighed a little bit more as well. Speaking of weight, like if it would have been his father, like I said earlier, just my opinion. But and Mike said all the CG is terrible, like, and I know the CG gets some hate, but I think that this CG actually really looks really good to me, in my opinion. Love the scene with Frost and Blade. Love the cinematography with that whole slow motion bullet, like I mentioned before. The Matrix did it, but the girl is okay after that throw and crash through that bus stop. I mean, come on, like another nitpick is like, don't show him making the silver bullets, by the way. Come the fuck on. Like, I mean, it's kind of cool to see that to an extent, but the dude shoots thousands upon thousands of rounds, and you're telling me you're implying that he makes each one of those by hand? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, just look, don't do that. Just leave that one up to your imagination, how he kind of gets those silver bullets. And, lastly, I do think the writing is good with the Whistler suicide, like giving him the "now walk away, you stupid son of a bitch," like instead of like some cheesy, like "I love you like my own son" type of thing. Like, I really think they played that and wrote that really well. And I know we'll talk about that some more in Blade 2 whenever I pick that one down the line. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I like this interaction, this is some of the very little dialogue in this movie that I do like, and it's between Whistler and Karen, the kind of discovery of who he is and who Blade is, a little bit more detail about what's actually going on here. All the cancer stuff, all that stuff I think is good dialogue and good character development. I just hate that they give this character cancer and kill him anyway. Like, I don't know. That seems pretty unnecessary to me. But okay, sure. So this is a turning point in the movie for me, though. After that, we get the scene where they're at the beach or whatever, and they're able to be in the sun because of sunblock. I'm sorry. That's all it took was sunblock. I know they're half human or started out human or whatever. That is a little fucking cheesy for me, man. I can't get with that. Come on, dude.
Well, to be fair, like it did show that it was just kind of holding it off some. They had to put those helmets on to block.
I know.
To be fair.
I know, but even that's just I can't get into it. I can't. I try. I can't get into it. This is some more bad CGI to me, where the elder vampire, because I'm not great with names, he explodes. Okay, sure. Now it's a cool moment for the character of Frost, but again, just not a fan of how we got there. I do like the scene with Blade and Frost. It's good. I don't like, again, the acting to me by Stephen Dorff is not good here though, but it's shot in a way that I find it believable enough. He just kind of reminds me of a very old school, over the top chicken shit heel from back in the day in wrestling. That's what he reminds me of, and I don't particularly like that much. He's more annoying than evil to me. And this is where the movie starts to kind of turn to a little bit of a hokey movie, for lack of a better term. There's some cool stuff in this movie that I think is ahead of its time, and then you get to this set, and I'm just not in it, man. And this movie has the ultimate on this show, and we normally get one a week, but there is no more fuck them kids moment than in this movie where Frost tossed that girl into the stand. She lives, but it's still, man, fuck them kids. No one reacts to Blade helping this girl out of the street, though. No one. This bus or truck almost hits the girl, and no one does shit when Blade just scoops in and saves her life. Again, he doesn't. I do like that he's nonchalant about saving people. It's good. It's not a priority to him. Again, I think that's pretty big. He comes back, and the Whistler's dying. Karen's gone. And to me, this is one of the only times where, okay, Wesley Snipes is in character here. And I'm okay with it, but some of this stuff is where the character Blade kind of loses me. Like, there's no up or down with him. Like, he doesn't show any kind of emotion until like later when he's, bleeding out, obviously. But I'm with you, Brian. I like the way they wrote that, where he gets his gun, you're going to have to shoot me. No, okay, give me your gun, I'll do it. All that stuff, all that's really good. And there's no like mushy moment, but I just kind of wish there was more emotion involved from both people, if that makes sense. I don't even know a better way I would have done it, but I just know that it wasn't quite for me. So some good, some bad, but to me, this is where the movie kind of starts to turn into something where I'm just kind of like, this is too much. Like, I'm sure Dustin can relate. In wrestling, when Bray Wyatt was doing all that Fiend stuff, this kind of starts to get in that territory for me, where I'm like, I'm just not in all this. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I can respect that. So, first of all, in this set of scenes, what the hell is up with Karen just being like an amazing scientist that just automatically knows what to look for, and she's gonna borrow some stuff from the hospital, and she knows to take a microscope like that? That could seem a little bit far fetched for me, as if vampires aren't already. But I think we get I like the scene where we get Blade and Frost in public, because I like how vampires can have this way of communicating without necessarily communicating. And Blade's just walking down the street and he hears Blade, and he looks over and there's Frost across the street with the little Japanese girl. And I did have it in my scene or in my notes as well. That's definitely this week's Man Fuck Them Kids award. He tossed that little girl right out into traffic and took off. And so this award doesn't just go to Frost though. It goes to everyone else that just let it happen, like
Yes.
Brian said. Like, come on, he threw her ass out in traffic. Blade picks her up, takes her to the sidewalk. No one thought to check on her, and he says, "Go home." And she starts running home. I can't help but think, imagine the time that she's gonna have trying to get her parents to believe what just happened. Like, Mom, I just got kidnapped. He picked me up off the ground by my throat. Then he threw me out in traffic, and a black guy scooped me off the street to save my life. Told me to go home. I wouldn't believe none of that shit. But anyway, I did like the scene with Dragonetti. Like, I thought that was a good job of the modern take on vampire lore, letting him, you've never experienced the sunlight because you're a poor pure breed. I'm glad we get to do it together. And then he bursts into flames and explodes. Like, I actually did like that, but I thought it was funny as hell when he asked him if it was sunscreen or whatever it was when Frost was out in the sunlight. I absolutely hate my man Whistler getting curb stomped like that. Like, holy shit, that was completely unnecessary. I do agree with what you said, Mike. It is a bit much to give him cancer and kill him off anyway. But I think they did that to kind of make it even more shocking. Like and telling the audience that and telling Karen that he has cancer just makes us like Whistler even more and, empathize with him even more. You're like, oh, this poor old guy. And then comes the badasses. They just stomp him out and leave him under a sheet for dead. I thought that was completely fucked. And man, it was just an emotional kick in the balls when Blade left him his gun and just walks off, and you hear the gunshot. Like, holy shit, I thought that was a fantastic job of pulling at your emotions here. But overall, I think that it was a good set of scenes, a very solid set of scenes, especially when we get the face-to-face with Blade and Frost. And, Frost telling him, I know everything about you. It kind of lets you know that the final conflict that we're going to get is not going to be just as simple as what you would think. Blade's pretty much a badass that can beat any enemy to this point, but it kind of lets you know that Frost is different. Like, he's going to be well prepared for their battle, and I think it does a good job of setting that up.
All right, here's the ending, guys. Frost questions Karen, saying she looks tense. He tells her he wants to see her happy. She tells him there's a cure if you were once human. She pisses him off, and he says he's top of the food chain. He tells her they need Blade's blood. The team tells Frost they have an intruder as we hear a motorcycle revving up. Blade emerges and begins shooting them. Frost commands the place be locked down. Blade fights more of them, stabbing them with needles, causing their heads to explode. Blade makes it to the room Frost was in, and the bed opens, and a woman calls for Blade by his name, Eric. She says she came back and Deacon welcomed her. Frost stuns him from behind, and they circle him, stunning him over and over. Frost reveals he bit his mother. He says after all this he might take her miracle cure, but the catch is he'll become completely human. They pull Blade out the truck and drag him and Karen to this temple. Frost tells Frost tells them this temple was built for one glorious moment. Frost gets Blade sword now and jokes about cutting Quinn's arm off. Blade can't hear he needs serum. Frost taunts him and Blade tells him to try it. Frost throws all the serum to the ground below. Blade tells Frost he'll be dead by dawn and they drag him out. Frost and Quinn say they have something special planned for Karen. Frost pushes Karen down a hole into like this dungeon below. Curtis is down there and chases after her. She kicks him and they fight now. She bludgeons him with a bat and manages to make her way back onto the tunnel out of the hole. They begin to set up the ritual. Blade's mom cuts his shirt off and they bind him into, I think, like this mold looking thing. His mom rubs him, saying he's so sick and thirsty. She says vampires are her people now. Another half of the mold closes in and contains Blade. Blade begins to bleed into the mold. They place one person under each glyph. Karen makes her way out of the tunnel. Karen makes it to Blade and gets the mold open and gets him unbound. Quinn and Frost say they'll be gods tonight. Karen says he's bleeding to death and he needs his serum. She pulls him to her and says to take some of her blood. Frost yells as everyone thirsty as Blade's blood drips on the sacrificial people. Frost is in the middle of the ritual with hands to the sky. Blade is strong again after drinking blood. The blood drips on Frost. Lightning, I guess it's like lightning or power beams hit the people in the sacrifice. Blade and his mom begin to combat. Karen shoots one of the guards, killing him, stealing his gun. Blade kills his mom. The skeletons begin to fly out of the sacrifices and into Frost over and over. Blade makes it to Frost now, but first kills Quinn swiftly. Blade fights Frost squad now, excuse me. Karen shoots and fights Frost's female vampire, killing her with the vampire mace. Blade kills more men, finally getting his sword back. Blade and Frost sword fight now. Blade cuts his arm off and cuts him in half, but he regenerates. Frost punches Blade into a beam, and none of Blade's attacks are working now. Blade gets his serum and throws the needles into Frost. He kicks the final one into his forehead. Frost now balloons and explodes. Karen calls for Blade, and he says, "Let's get out of here." She says she needs to get to the lab to cure him. He says there's still a war going on, and if she wants to help, make me a better serum. Moscow. We see a man and woman walking, and he pushes her to the wall, about to attack, but Blade appears. He pulls his sword out, and the film ends. All right, go ahead, Brian.
All right, so the ending of this one in particular, I think, is pretty much a mixed bag. I don't think it's a dud. I just don't really like how much of it was handled, in my opinion. Like some positives: the fight choreography, amazing. Ripping out a familiar's throat and then throwing it at another dude, pure awesomeness. So just let me start with that positivity. I did hear complaints on that the CG vampires like exploding too, but honestly, I don't personally think that looked bad either. But here we go. It's been a long time since we've had a visit from Brian, the script doctor, but here we go. Firstly, I don't like the mom twist. I think that you just reveal that, and I know it's Batman 89 Joker here, but you just reveal that Frost is the one who killed his mother and turned him. I think maybe you even find that out from, not him telling Blade, because who the hell remembers everybody that they've killed if you're a vampire? I don't know. But, I think you have them find out from like Karen, giving her something else to do. But maybe you get a sample of Frost's blood somehow and she makes the discovery that way. I know that's a little bit of a Princess Bride. I'm an Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. But I mean, I personally would have liked that better. This just seemed kind of forced, and hell, it's not realistic that Frost would have waited till now to reveal that anyway, in my opinion. Also, I don't like that the Blood God ending is some like CGI fest energy and basically just made Frost like a slight bit stronger, and not very godlike. But I think I would have liked to have seen it be an actual badass vampire resurrected, like I don't know, King Tut, like make King Tut some Egyptian mummy or something, that like some ancient being. I think the movie sucked ass, But the idea of Dracula from Blade Trinity was a good idea, I think, in that regard. I also love how Karen tries to talk to Blade, and Frost says the thirst has him. Then Frost talks to him, and he answers right back. So I was like, "Fuck." Also, again, like I touched on earlier, I think you make Karen turn. I think you have her bitten by Blade there, maybe, then have her come back later as like as a vampire, and you think maybe she's a bad guy, and so do they, until now she's super strong and uses that to further help Blade in that whole final fight against the Blood God, which isn't Frost. The Blood God kills Frost as soon as he gets there. Maybe he shows how badass he is. I don't know, or she is, for that matter. Becomes like, but maybe she becomes a new Whistler into, like I said, another badass vampire killer. Maybe we run into again later on. Maybe she dies, possibly in 2. Again, though, I'm glad they, I don't know. But again, I'm glad that they didn't make them get together like Dustin and Mike said earlier, romantically or anything there. I do give them props for that as well. And like I said earlier, I think you have Quinn run away here again at the final scene and then get caught up with by Blade in that whole credit scene. To me, that makes no sense. I don't know why he's in Moscow, just some random. I think it's just like, hey, let's just end on Blade again. I don't really know what that was about, but I think it would have been cooler if it was Quinn. And I have just a tad more if the other guys don't touch on it, but I'll shut up now. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Outside of the fighting that I think is really good, this last set of scenes is just not for me, man. Like, I don't like a whole lot of it. I don't like them being captured. I don't like the mom twist that you mentioned, Brian. That's one of my biggest problems with this. It's so unrealistic. And I'm a fan of professional wrestling. I can suspend my disbelief, and horror movies for that matter. But this is just so unrealistic that Frost would wait this damn long to tell him that his mom is alive and he's the one, and she's a vampire with him now. That does not make any sense. I don't really like any of this blood god thing, all this, weird sacrificing stuff and these really bad CGI skull bat things kind of going into Frost, and he's absorbing all their power, and how slow the damn blood drips down from Blade. Jesus Christ, man, hurry the hell up with that. I just think it's dragged out way too long. What we really came here to see is Blade kick ass, and I feel like we could have got to that a lot quicker. Some of that is really good. I like that he just obliterates Quinn finally. For the love of God, man, you finally did what you should have done at the very beginning of the film. Karen is a bad aim with a gun. Holy shit, she can't shoot anything. She hits everything but her target. It's unbelievable. Finally does. But anyway, so it's just a whole lot of hokey for me. Very over the top. It's hard to take it serious. And if I'm not supposed to, okay, I can kind of get with that. But if the intent of the filmmakers is for me to take this seriously, I just can't. I don't know if it's the acting or what, but it's not for me. The line about ice skating uphill is funny. It doesn't fit. It's funny, though. From Snipes, the backstory on that's kind of fun, where he was Snipes said that randomly, and the director writer, I don't remember which one, was like, oh, that's the line, and Wesley Snipes was like, no, that doesn't fit. That doesn't make any sense. We're not using that, and they ended up using it anyway. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, I kind of wish there would have been a better resolution here with him and Karen. Not a romantic one, but just, I don't know. It kind of ended flat to me. And there's some cool stuff in this whole movie, but this last set of scenes outside of the fighting is just it's just not my cup of tea. I had a really hard time finishing it this rewatch because I hadn't watched it in so long, and I didn't quite remember why I didn't like it that much, and now I do.
So the ending, honestly, to me, is a little too busy. Too much going on. They could have got the point across, or got the job done just fine, just by having Karen be kidnapped, and Blade's got to find her, and he leads him into a trap. I didn't need the whole side plot with his mom. like you said, it was introduced way too late for me to really care, I guess. I mean, don't get me wrong, Sanaa Lathan, call me sometime. But I don't need
Absolutely,
that
brother.
side plot. It is funny that she played his mom in this movie, and he's actually 9 years older than her. But whatever. The CG and the fight scene was awful. We get the lightning striking the vampires, and then you see their skeleton through it. I thought that was a bag of ass. The fight scene that we get, the final fight between Blade and Frost, I thought was awesome. It's well choreographed, but the CG was just terrible. I hate how when he was cut in half and his body's separating, and then his blood catches each other and pulls them back together. Like, it just didn't look good. But overall, I mean, to be honest with you, I thought the ending was disappointing just because of how much I enjoyed the rest of this movie. But it's not enough to make me dislike it by any means. But it's just, I thought they'd done such a good job at a lot of things, and then, like I think Brian, I think you said it, they just made it. They went overboard with the CG, and it kind of took it out of it for me. Then that whole side plot that we got at the beginning of this set of scenes with his mom and everything, and him, stripped down. He doesn't have his cool leather vest. He doesn't have sunglasses. But we do get some cool things, like when he gets his sunglasses back. I thought that was awesome. The final death of Frost when he's throwing all these capsules into him, and then just the way that he kicks. I think he kicked the last one into his forehead. I thought it was fucking awesome. But it's more miss than hit for me, but not enough to take away from the overall movie.
Agree. And the last thing I had on this was, like, there was the original ending as it was planned. Frost actually turned into the blood god and became a large swirling mass of blood instead of keeping his humanoid form. Now the test audiences hated it, and actually you can actually on the DVD, if you watch the alternate ending of this, and I've watched it and it's been so long, but like, to me, I remember the ending of Blade of the real movie being this ending, which I hate even more because it looks. You thought that CG that they used and that was bad. Oh my God, it was so bad because he's just that terrible CG blood blob the whole time. Oh God, yeah, it's real bad.
Another thing. Also, there's like this weird, unfortunate, unnecessary sexual tension with his mom that's just not needed, necessary. It's terrible. Got that shit out.
I didn't catch that sexual tension.
Oh stuff. Yeah.
Whenever he was getting bit by Karen, like, that was kind of, I think, supposed to give you a sexual thing, but I never got it with his mom.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brian. I think
it's there.
I picked up the same thing. Are you sure the sexual tension wasn't just from you looking at Sanaa Lathan? Because I had that.
No, I mean, I had that earlier, but no, man. She's like kind of touching on his chest and stuff. It's weird. It's not mom-son stuff. It's weird. I mean, the man is shirtless. Come on.
All right, moving on. I don't have any fun facts. I'm going to let you guys do that. I'm just going to read off some of the comments from Instagram because we got a lot of them, so I'd like to just read them real quick. Danny C. Knapp's one of our biggest fans over there. Brian, she just asked, when is it going up? She's super excited for the episode. I told her tomorrow, though. Mitch RT93 just said, pumped for the review of this classic. Dustin, you got a lot of love on this movie, Dustin. Elbow Tyler, he's a big fan on Instagram. Catchy fuckers at a bad time. Donald Logue went on to be in two of my favorite shows, Gotham and Sons of Anarchy. And Deacon Frost is the kid from The Gate. When I was a kid, I thought this was the coolest movie ever. I wanted that sword so bad, LOL. Can't wait to hear y'all's favorite kills for this one.
Oh, I got that sword.
Nice. Of course you do, money. Of course you do, money man. Joe Black Tattoo said, I remember watching a small portion of this movie on Stars as a young gun and not knowing what it was called. I spent the next whole while trying to find out what movie I had seen so I could watch the full thing. This movie is an easy 8.5, and I hope you guys review part 2 as well, which I found to be a fair bit scarier than this one. I'm stoked for this review. Just a couple more comments. As a freshman in high school, I gave my girlfriend Blade on DVD as well as Dawn of the Dead on VHS for her birthday, fully knowing that she didn't like horror and would not want to keep them. So, oh no, I guess I'd have to keep them for myself. Ah, she was
Nice.
so
Good job.
angry.
Nice.
But Nestor, love to see it.
Leia.
Great.
DY
That's
Hunt
great.
says, so stoked for this one. One of my absolute favorites. Mark_have loved this movie, and that song at the beginning in the Bloodbath Club was awesome. Effects at the end were awful. Snipes was born to be Blade. And yes, the blonde vampire can call me sometime. He's biting your style, Mike. And the last one, is from Bright So Art, Maddie Talley, one of our fans of the show, or friends of the show. Set the stage for the modern superhero movie. I always think of it as an action movie despite the vampire theme. Not a true horror in my opinion, but a great movie. I can see that. But appreciate all the comments. We don't get usually this many comments on our, Instagram teaser post. So appreciate all the love.
Yeah,
Anybody's got fun facts, go ahead.
Yeah, blonde vampire can also call me sometime.
Yeah, and I agree with Maddie. I mean, that's kind of what I said. I didn't view this movie as a horror movie for a long time, but I mean, when you actually think about it, it fits the bill, it fits the description. So I wasn't going to pass up the chance to pick this movie that I love.
I mean, we just did Beetlejuice, so
Exactly.
here we are.
By the way, blonde vampire, I'm pretty sure is Arlie Jover, who is Mercury as her name, which I don't think is ever mentioned, but that's something
Crazy about Mercury. Crazy about I couldn't resist singing Alan Jackson on the show.
Nice. That was good. That was good.
If any of y'all got fun facts, go ahead. I don't have any tonight.
I've got a couple, but go ahead. Go ahead, Dustin.
Okay, I'll just knock mine out real quick. So David Goyer explained in the DVD commentary that the scene where Karen touches Blade's sword was originally longer as she went on to discover a weird hybrid infant of some kind floating in a tank. It came with a jump scare, and Goyer said, I think it would have scared the living shit out of the audience, but New Line felt it was just too horrible. Yeah, good call. When David Goyer first pitched the idea of doing a Blade movie, the executives considered Wesley Snipes, Denzel Washington, and Lawrence Fishburne, but in Goyer's mind, Snipes was always the perfect choice. LL Cool J was also considered. Wesley Snipes was interested in doing a movie adaptation of the Black Panther comics when he was offered the project. He said that he was unfamiliar with the Blade comics, seeing more of a connection to the blaxploitation heroes of the 70s. I just approached him as a real cool character where I'd get to do martial arts and wear a leather suit. And he nailed that shit. This one kind of upsets me. It kind of hurts my heart a little bit because if you're familiar with the Marvel movies, then you're familiar with seeing Stan Lee make a cameo. So Stan Lee originally had a cameo in this film, but it was cut. He played one of the cops that came into the Blood Club during the aftermath and discovered Quinn's body on fire. I really wish that we got to see the late, great Stan Lee in that role.
Boo, Stephen Norrington, boo.
Yeah. So just two more here. Number one, if you're unfamiliar with Blade, the comics, Blade first appeared in the comic The Tomb of Dracula, number 10, which was from July of 1973. So this goes back a long time. And the last one, David Goyer and Stephen Norrington had some battles with New Line Cinema over Karen's relationship with Curtis, the other doctor at the beginning. The filmmakers, meaning Goyer and Norrington, wanted to keep the conversation going a little too long to the point to where viewers were bored with these two talking about themselves, and that's when the vampire rises. The studio kept requesting they trim it all down as it sounds like Melrose Place. I'm glad they trimmed it because, like we talked, I think we all touched on it. We didn't need that side plot anyway. Like, who cares about their love life? So I think they got it right.
Well, maybe in his defense, and I don't know what the hell he was thinking, but maybe he was trying to lure you into a sense of something else so you didn't expect the jump scare. I don't know. That's just me throwing that out there. Yeah. I just have three before, and then Mike can do the budget. And since I stole his fun fact earlier, but in updating the vampire lore, Steve Norrington and David Goyer decided that crosses wouldn't work against vampires, citing, quote, "What if a vampire was Jewish? Why would a cross work against him?" So good point. The scene where Karen and Deacon are talking about the cure for vampirism and initially ran a bit longer. It actually answered the question of how vampires would feed if everybody was turned into a vampire. They would keep some humans alive in like giant blood bags, to kind of harvest them. The bags can still be seen in a doorway during the scene, and later played an integral part of the plot in Blade Trinity, which doesn't exist. It was also the
Exactly.
it was also the underlying plot structure for the movie Daybreakers, which is actually on my list of movies to watch soon. I have not seen that yet. And lastly, in 2004, David Goyer revealed to MovieWeb a little known fact that David Fincher got involved with Blade after Seven, which came out in 1995, and admits that he did help Goyer develop the script. So he was actually going to direct it. So we could have got a David Fincher directed Blade movie, which would have been probably amazing.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that.
So he was actually going to direct it for unknown reasons. He didn't end up doing it. So there you go.
Okay, so you took the one fun fact I had earlier. So the budget was it's all good. I'm just messing around. The budget was $45 million and made a cool $131.2 million, which, by the way, considering the modern superhero gross, that may not be a lot, but in 1998, that's a lot of money, especially since, like you mentioned at the top of the show, Dustin, superhero movies were kind of dying because of Batman and Robin and stuff like that. So this movie, like you said, made Marvel realize, oh, we can make some money with this thing. And so the rest is history.
Alrighty, let's jump into our favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the ratings. Anybody in particular want to go first?
I'll go ahead and go since it's my pick.
Okay.
Least favorite kill first. So I was conflicted on this one. Whistler's kill really was a motherfucker, man. Like that shit hurted. But Pearl was so disgusting that I had to give my least favorite kill to Pearl, just because I didn't want to see Pearl's badass in this movie anyway. My favorite kill was Frost, just because of how, like I said it earlier, Blade's the coolest hero we've had on any of these movies. And so just the way that he threw all those capsules into him, but then the last one just up in the air and he just kicks it into his forehead. Like, that's such a badass way to kill someone. So I had to go with Frost. Now, as far as rating goes, I really like this movie. This is a movie that I've enjoyed for a really long time. It's a movie that I'll never get tired of. It's a movie that, I wish they would have made a third one, but unfortunately it didn't happen.
I don't know. Triple H says otherwise, brother.
Sarah J was in that movie, but I think that the casting was it something I said? I think the casting was great in this movie. I thought, some of the script could have been better. Some of the dialogue could have been better. The effects certainly could have been better, but at the time, who's to say? They just didn't age properly. Otherwise, this movie would get a higher rating for me. I gave this movie an 8.25.
Okay, I'll go ahead and let Nico go next because I think Brian, he's high, so he should go last.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay,
I'm high in score, not high on the marijuana.
The marijuana, as you would say. the marijuana. The Mary Janes. Okay, so my least favorite kill is Pearl, for all the reasons Dustin said. Also, the fart thing is dumb. But anyway, my favorite kill is it was kind of hard to pick because there's not like a lot of like cool kills per se, but I got satisfaction out of the way he just obliterated Quinn. So I went with that. Like in thin air, bing, done. Love it. Love the way he disintegrated. And got his glasses back. That was cool. So look, I tried to, throughout this review, speak a little more positively than I probably would have wanted to, just because I try not to live in the negative unless the movie is objectively bad. Like when we review something like, if we ever review Freddy's Dead, I'm not going to be very kind. Or we have a bonus coming up that I'm not going to be very kind about. But this movie is not objectively bad. It's just not my taste in film. And so I tried to kind of stick with more of the positives. But all the negatives I said still hold true. I think the dialogue is really bad for most of the film. I think the CG really weighs this movie down. It's bad. And I just don't like the story. The story just isn't for me, it's not something I'm super interested in. So I give this movie a 5.5.
All right. My favorite kill, I chose Curtis. I just wrote when that burnt cadaver vampire sprung up out of nowhere, killing him. It got a good pop out of me. I didn't remember that kill, and I was like, oh hell yeah! All right, cool. My worst kill, I'm Dustin. I chose Whistler. I like me some Chris Christopherson. He was a sailor. He was born upon the tides, and ending his own life stunk to me. I hated that.
Cross the river deep and wide. Oh, sorry.
I fucking love that song. That's a great song.
It's a great song.
All right.
And he'll be back again and again.
And again, and again. All right. I just wrote, I haven't seen this movie since who knows how long. Wesley is fantastic as Blade, and I really like Chris. However, this just isn't my type of movie. I'm with you, Mike, 100%. Action scenes are fine, but they just get monotonous to me. I feel like this is at least 15, 20 minutes too long, and CGI is bad. Not its fault. It's just it aged bad. I've had to piggyback off a lot of like YouTube reviews I've watched, and I thought something was off with Frost's character as well. I don't think he was a bad actor. Something was just not right with him. He just seemed too not serious enough, I guess. Not terrible, but not my cup of tea. I gave it a 5.5 as well, Mike.
Ah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, so I love Blade, like I said, and also, like I said, I have a replica sword of the Daywalker in my office at work. Just FYI, I love this. I love it. I love the world building that this one does. I think Snipes is epic as Blade. And as much as I really like Marshall Ali as an actor, Marvel's plan for a reboot, I'm not a fan of it because it's not Snipes. Like Dustin would say, maybe I'm a traditionalist in some aspects. But I love this movie. I do think that the ending, to me, knocks it down a tad, and I actually gave it an 8.
Okay, so that gives our score. Well, really, mine and Brian's score are the only valid ones here. But
God.
overall, that gives us a top composite score of this movie of 6.8125. IMDb's at a 7.1, so we're pretty close.
Hey, it's balanced.
It's all about. I mean, we really did have balance. We had an 8 and 8.5, and then we had two 5.5s. I mean, that's pretty balanced.
Yeah.
And I will say this, Brian, to your point, when we do Blade 2, I'm likely to have a higher score. I have a little more nostalgia for it.
I'm not even gonna say it. Any more final thoughts for me?
Not much higher, but a little higher, I think.
Yeah. I got
Hashtag
one
never
last
seen
final
it.
thought. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
We knew.
You've never seen it. But I do have one more thought that I just realized when I was clearing out my note of my note from my note app of my notes for this review. God dang, that was a lot to say. But I did make a note of how. Did you see the size of Frost's collar in this movie? My man was wearing a white button-down shirt, and that collar was goddamn ridiculous. Go back and watch that shit. It cracked me up.
Man, and he was listening to some 3-6 Mafia. Oh, never mind.
He was pop. If he popped that collar, it would look like a damn old school Dracula cloak. That's how tall.
He is a vampire. Oh, thank you.
All right, let's shout out these blood donors, and I'll have Brian announce his movie pick for next week. Going back to our logo with this one. Blood donors, camp level, reoccurring is Mr. Clayton J. and Ms. Nina. We really appreciate y'all. And our camp counselor is my man Hunter Nelson. We just did his movie pick last week, Beetlejuice. Check that out. Miss Karen, Shannon Petrusevich, and Dennis Kennedy. We just want to thank all of y'all for your Patreon and your helping us support us every month. We really appreciate it. It helps out a lot. All right, Brian, go ahead. I know you want to announce something.
Yeah, well, first thing, like the last time that we tried to do a giveaway, and look, we get thousands of listens on our episodes, like every week, and we had like one wrong, by the way, answer to giveaway I tried to give. So I want to do something different because I want to give some stuff away. So what I'm going to do is some of these recurring blood donors, I'm actually just going to pick one, maybe a couple times a month, maybe whatever, and send you guys some cool stuff. Nina, we got to get that address and that last name from you at some point. But this week I actually picked Dennis Kennedy, so I'm going to send you some cool stuff. Hey, if you guys haven't become a blood donor, hey, go check that out. Go do that. Get you some free stuff. It ends up washing out in the wash in the end.
All right, Brian, you want to announce your pick for next week?
Oh, let's go. Look, I'm not even going to try to hide it. It's by far my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie. We haven't done Freddy in a long time because.
Oh, hold up. Pause that. I think you're thinking a month ahead.
Must be.
Next
What I
week is
pick?
Halloween 4.
Oh shit. Well, actually, when you said I'm gonna pick, I picked a movie. I was like, oh shit. Okay, what did I pick? Oh yeah, New Nightmare. No, dude, I completely forgot it's October. Yeah, you're right.
I can't lie. When you started saying that, I was like, oh shit, he changed his pick.
I was like, shit, Brian changed his pick, didn't even tell us.
Okay, yeah, and for my pick next week, like Mike said, we're going back to the logo. One of my favorite movies in the franchise, as you probably heard in the Halloween franchise rankings that we did, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
Yeah, buddy.
1988. I think we've got a lot. I think we'll have a lot to say about this. I know a couple of our co-hosts aren't really a fan of the movie, but if you haven't listened, we've had Ellie Cornell on the show. Go check that out. We've also had Kathleen Kinmont, both of them from this movie, on the show for interviews. don'tgooutthere.com/interviews.
I think only one co-host isn't a fan. That's all I'm going to say. Because I watched it with another co-host, and he didn't hate it that much.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it was a nice return to the Halloween franchise after that blasphemous part 3 that they put out.
Sorry, Matt Sears, not sorry.
Yeah, I don't hate this movie, but it's not my favorite. Anywho, any more final thoughts tonight before we close out the episode?
Yeah, Halloween 4 is not part of the Thorn trilogy. That does not exist. There's no Cult of Thorn in Halloween 4. Fuck off if you think it is.
I love it. I'm fucking off.
Fuck off, Brian.
All right, y'all have a good one. Appreciate all the support.
And just want to remind everybody to don't go out there.